Dystopia warning. Obviously, welcome back to General Election Watch 2024. We're currently halfway there, and I am currently living on a prayer. So take my hand. I can't swear that we'll make it, but I can swear. And I probably will a lot in this video, So everyone dropped their manifestos this week, didn't they? Labour did theirs yesterday. And despite other progressive parties providing quite a lot of uncosted policy that's largely undeliverable and based on pure hypothesis because they're never going to actually have the power, and despite Reform releasing a manifesto that's pure nonsense, fantasy economics, and essentially includes the privatisation of our NHS, there's still a bunch of Brendas and Daves, aren't there, going around saying, I used to vote Labour, then I voted Tory, and now I'm going to vote Reform. What has to have gone wrong in your head to think that Farage is the answer to any question? And to think, yeah, I know what I'll do. I'll vote Reform. You're voting for the people that have basically influenced Tory policy since 2016, and look where that's got you. Notice how Reform are blaming foreigners for everything and not their Brexit, which has destroyed us economically. Yet notice how they're getting platformed by basically every media channel. Yeah. Labour released a relatively modest manifesto. I'm not saying this as a sycophant of Labour. I'm saying this just with basic understanding of our political reality, right? They're the ones that are going to actually have to put it all into fruition. And they're being cautious. Why? Because they're going to inherit an actual recession. Reform have overtaken the Tories in the polls, which is funny because it means that Labour have got a bigger chance of winning because they're going to split the fash vote. So thanks, thickos. Thanks for believing everything that monorail salesman says. The only remaining benefit we have of first past the post is the guarantee that that prick and his BMPs, that's what I'm calling his MPs, like BMP, won't get any seats, will they? No. Racism and the far right is currently out of control. How's that been allowed to happen? Why did politicians let conspiracies go unchecked? Why around the time Brexit did Michael Gove say, oh, you know, it's time to stop believing experts?
I work very closely with the health department, with those who have got addictions, and I want to reassure my honourable friend.
Because it makes it easier for them, doesn't it? Tory MPs and these grifters alike. If people believe anything and facts are questioned, and then that went down really well when a pandemic hit us, didn't it? A large part of the problem is the media. We started platforming that week around the time of Brexit, creating a false equivalence, putting a proven liar up against actual economists and real experts. And that's how we ended up with people like this, unable to explain why they voted Leave in the first place.
Why do you want Brexit to happen at 11 o'clock? What's it going to mean to you?
Well, it'll just mean that we can get our...
Sorry, it's crowded. Carry on.
Just get our own lives back, really, because we don't have any laws, or we've got to abide by EU, and no, I'll be ecstatic at 11 o'clock.
How will you feel?
Just because we're getting our freedom back.
What does that actually mean? How's your daily life going to change?
It's just total independence. You know, it's just going to change so much. You know, it'd be nice to see I get a lot of our industry back.
It was such a heist, you know, the biggest heist we've ever seen. And none of us benefited, but all their rich mates did. The media continues to be the biggest barrier that we have in this country when it comes to having a functioning democracy. The politicians eroded public standards, made lying normal, and they've primed people in this country to be susceptible to con artists and liars, to accept bullshit because it suits them. I mean, most politicians are salesmen, but fuck me. Just turns out that the Tories and Reform aren't selling anything that is in any way beneficial to us, no. Just them, and he's the worst, as he boasts about people signing up and handing over their money to his limited company masquerading as a political party. In other news, a Conservative aide is facing questions, but as far as I'm aware, not any criminal charges, for placing a bet on when the election would be held, in the days before the election was announced. His name is Craig Williams. He's the human equivalent of an unflattering portrait drawn by a seaside sketch artist. He's what would happen if the average American was told to draw a British person. People in government have expressed their disappointment. Yeah, disappointment that they didn't do the same thing. Now, I think it's really important to commemorate that today is the 7-year anniversary of Grenfell. I don't mince my words when it comes to Grenfell. It was social murder. Everything about this was political. The vast proportion of people in that building were poor or from immigrant families. And the people responsible for their deaths were largely white rich people, and that's why 7 years on, nobody has been held accountable. What essentially constitutes gross negligence, corporate manslaughter. And an article that came out today said that people that were affected by Grenfell, COVID, the infected blood scandal, they have no faith that inquiry recommendations will be carried out, and they're right to think that. Inquiries cost millions of pounds of our money, and they're almost always a get out of jail free card. MPs and businesses hope for inquiries because it lets them off the hook. Public inquiries are not a route to justice in the least. I'd go as far as to say that they're a route to avoid any form of justice. The government almost always chooses not to act on the findings. There's an accountability gap, and that's precisely what they want, isn't it? It's just another example of unchecked power. They can do what they want, even if it kills thousands of us, and never face any real consequences, and that should terrify you. Then it should make you angry, then it should make you act. Without any form of mandatory implementations of inquiry findings, tragedies repeat themselves. What do the MPs care? They're safe, their homes aren't going to combust, are they? Sadly. They just refer to the deaths of poor people as lessons to be learned, don't they? Their detachment from the reality of the life that we're living is chilling, and I would say pathological. It's insult after insult, especially when you consider that the local council charged Grenfell residents to remove memorials. And what about Jacob Rees-Mogg, blaming Grenfell residents for listening to the fire service and not leaving? This is what he said.
I think if either of us were in a fire, whatever the fire brigade said, we would leave the burning building. It just seems the common sense thing to do. And it is such a tragedy that that didn't happen.
What a piece of shit. Today I'll remember 72 souls who deserve to have their concerns about living in a tragedy waiting to happen listened to, but they weren't, and then the tragedy happened. And not just that, they were blamed, when in reality they were enduring the feudal society that we're forced to live in because of monsters like that. The inquiry was a sick joke, and it did exactly what it was designed to do. Run down the clock of public interest and outrage with a long drawn-out foray into bureaucracy. Police won't do anything, will they? They're institutionally racist. The head of the police is in bed with the Tory government. Neither of them care about immigrant families or people of colour, or the poor, broadly. They just care about serving and protecting each other. Proven by Partygate, 24/7 armed police guards, nightly parties, people getting off their tits on coke. They obfuscate each other's crimes and negligence. This is a part of the reason why I have no time for conspiracy theorists, because the worst people imaginable are doing the worst things that you could ever possibly dream of, in plain sight. And they're not just making our laws whilst breaking them, they're in control of the nuclear codes and our taxpayers' money. And as for that haunted Wednesday, well, do you want to get him out? It's very easy, very simple process. They've changed the boundaries, which is then moving the goalposts in order to try and con a win by usually moving the boundaries so more affluent people are included in the area and therefore more likely to vote Tory. Well, good luck to them, because even posh people are pissed off with the Tories now, but I digress. This is his constituency. This is voting intention in his constituency. If you vote Liberal Democrat here, you're going to help them make up for the deficit being caused by people like Reform. If you vote Labour, he's done for. This is how things are shaping up at the moment, and who has the greatest chance of winning in his constituency. Things are looking pretty bad for him, which I like. If you want to ensure there's no chance of him winning, vote Labour. A vote for Lib Dem is going to get you nowhere. And that brings me on to my reminder that the stopthetories.vote website is up and running now. Smash in your postcode, find out your tactical vote to make a Tory cry in a sports centre on election night. And don't forget, you've got until 5 p.m. on the 26th of June to apply for your free voter ID, which Jacob Rees-Mogg admitted was gerrymandering, conning people, rigging elections.
Parties that try and gerrymander end up finding that their clever scheme comes back to bite them, as, dare I say, we found by insisting on voter ID for elections, and we found that the people who didn't have ID were elderly, and they by and large voted Conservative. So we made it hard for our own voters, and we upset a system that worked perfectly well, was one of the glories of our country, actually.
And you've got until midnight on the 18th of June to register to vote. Do it. Destroy them.